Hi, everyone. I'm Leanne Wood from the PR and social media team for the show, and I'm the MC of the Smart Stage, powered by CE Pro. I feel like this afternoon has been so informative with practical advice, tips, and best business practices, and the next session is no different. Sponsored by Sound United and moderated by Arlen Schweiger, executive editor of CE Pro, please join Arlen and his panelists as they dive deep to help integrators get the most from AVR installations. Gentlemen.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today for maximizing your AV receiver's smart remote management capabilities. And we're very pleased to have Sound United's Phil Jones, Director of Training, with us, and Tom Ercolino, AV Systems Engineer, AVR CI Support with us from Sound United. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
How are you?
Doing very well. So thanks. We wanted to really dig deep into today's AV receivers, from going beyond the actual audio and video capabilities today. There are certainly a lot of integration features that some dealers may not know about already, some may and may not be utilizing them to all their capabilities. But these are things that can really help dealers out. So, I want to first just kind of walk us through some of the features in today's AVRs and what they can expect to see beyond, the AV processing and things like that.
Well, if you look at all of our first goal is to be a great partner for CI dealers. So the first thing is we have to provide all the features that the customers and the clients are demanding. So whether it's wireless music, immersive audio formats such as DTSX, Atmos, and all that stuff, the ability to be controlled by any of the major, pretty much all the major third-party control systems, whether it's Savant, URC, and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that it performs well, it has all the features the clients are asking for, it gives you all of those new lifestyle features like wireless music they demand, and it can be easily controlled and integrated in your control system. So we try to do that first, but then we try to work with and try to uncover new ways to help CI dealers improve their business and make their jobs easier above what we just talked about.
Sure, and today, obviously, remote system management is kind of a key phrase that we're hearing lots and lots about. We've gotten it through some power products in the past, but it seems to be today now that any sort of networked device and networked AV device is going to have these things that integrators can use to tap into customer systems remotely. So what are we seeing? What are we seeing in that from some of the Sound United products?
Well, the first thing is we want to make sure it's not our decision on which smart remote management system you'd want to use. So the first thing is let's make sure that we work with as many as possible. So whether it's Oversee, Domos, IEG, the goal is which system works best for you and what is already in your workflow. So that's the first thing. And Tom will tell you the worst thing that can happen as an installer is to have a problem, because every time you roll a truck, that is lost revenue. So if I can solve it remotely, it just makes it better, because I can't tell you, or if there's a problem, being able to log in remotely and see what's going on and quickly solve it is just a benefit, and that reduces the amount of calls that you would actually have.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you do an install and everything's working fine, if you could leave the house knowing that, hey, if I need to get into a setup menu or remotely reboot something, you'll leave much more confidently. You won't be alarmed if your customer calls and says, hey, something ain't quite right. You could still go into a setup menu in 5 minutes when you're not there.
Sure. Yeah. And what types of products are we seeing in these? Is it just the high-end stuff, or does it go all the way down to entry level? Is it all networked components?
It's any one of our network-enabled AVRs.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a Marantz or Denon AVR, regardless of the price point, pretty much we have a solution long as it's network-enabled. And like I said, it just makes the job a lot easier. So let's talk about, a lot of times we say, you should do a firmware update because it's going to have this new feature. But most installers, the first thing they do is they turn off the automatic firmware updates and even the alerts, because the firmware pops up and the client doesn't know what to do with it. So you go, I'm just going to set it to the way it was when I left, and I'm just going to leave it that way. So if we had a new surround sound format, a new app, a new service, something you don't get it because you're scared to have the firmware update done.
Or a bug fix to fix a cable box, or Roku came up with a new feature. Well, we counteracted that with firmware. Now you don't have to go out there.
Exactly, because the goal is our engineers continuously try to improve the performance of our pieces. So in order to get that performance improvement, you need to do your firmware updates. But if you leave them locked off because you switched off because you're concerned that it's going to bring up an icon you can't get rid of, or you're going to have to roll a truck out there to do it, you're going to turn that off. And a lot of times the client isn't going to get the latest features. With smart remote management, we can tell you that there's a firmware update coming. You can log into the house and do the firmware update. And the customer always will have the state-of-the-art performance of a Dun & Marantz product, but you don't have to worry. But you don't have to worry about the reliability of the system.
Mm-hmm. So when integrators go into some of these features, can you walk us through some of what's available to them in terms of the remote diagnostics and troubleshooting and reboots and things like that?
Yeah, so some of the features are you could check status, see if any zones are left on. Occasionally I'll get a call where an installer will say, my customer says my receiver is always warm, whether it's been turned off throughout the night or not. And they may not be using a zone 2, but somehow it got turned on inadvertently. And now you can remotely check rather than try to walk your customer through going into a rack room. But you could check, oh, hey, zone 2 is left on. That's probably why. And you could actually turn it off for him if he doesn't want to do that.
Exactly.
There's other features as well.
And does it go through, is there some sort of CI portal where they go, and can they do it from a web browser, or just a mobile device, an app?
Well, most of the smart remote management systems give you the ability to use your laptop or a port of your phone or a mobile device. So for example, we brought a couple of slides to show you some things. To learn more about what the differences are and what the unique selling propositions of each of these particular systems, feel free to visit their booths. But just know that we try to work as seamlessly as possible with each one of these. So if we go in and we talk about Oversee, there's always kind of a home page. You can have it on this is kind of what your PC would look like, but there's also, the same thing would come up on your smartphone. And you can see all the devices that are on the network, and you can connect to them. So I'll give you a real quick basic troubleshooting thing. Not only our AVRs have this capability, but a lot of our HEOS devices will also be shown on the Oversee. So say someone calls you and says, my bedroom speaker is not playing. Whether I'm using the AVR as a zone, or one of our 2-channel network receivers as a zone, or one of our sound bars as a zone, or one of our little desktop speakers as a zone, as the bedroom. I can log into here and I can see that the bedroom speaker has been offline for 3 days. So I can go in there and say it's probably unplugged. So instead of me driving a van 50 minutes to find out that it's unplugged, I can tell you that it's unplugged. If it's a receiver problem, I can reboot it and things like that. So I can see everything on there. So all the devices are shown, and then I can connect to them. Once I connect to them, I can get in and I can look at all the status of what's on, whether it's in surround. I'll give you another example. My wife calls me and tells me that everything turned on when I hit watch Netflix, but the receiver is still on cable. Trying to explain to the client to go grab the remote control or go down in their basement and turn the knob on the Marantz that's on the rack, when I can just log in from my phone and switch the input. It's just a way to make it easier, and many customers, they want it fixed now. They want it fixed now, and for them, a lot of times, it gives you the opportunity for, like we say, recurring revenue, because I can fix problems immediately, or he can log in and fix it immediately as well. So that's kind of some advantages to it as well. So each one of the devices has their own connection, and you can choose to connect to it from that location. So there's a lot of benefit to it.
Right, when you hit, we're looking at the page here, where you hit connect, that'll take you into the web GUI. Actually, if you were on site and typed in the IP address, that'll give you the whole setup menu.
And so when they start digging into some of the options when they get into a device, what are some of the things that are available to them besides like a reboot or reset?
if a receiver goes into protection, for example, it'll tell you why it went into protection. You're not just guessing, was it speakers, was it heat, or anything else. It'll tell you why. You may find out that an air conditioner stopped working in the rack room. So there's a lot to it.
You also, when you connect, all of our network-enabled devices that we launched this year, network-enabled receivers we launched this year have a web UI. So when you connect to the web UI. So you have access to every single setting in the menu that you would have had if you had used the on-screen, your on-screen menu, or if you had a laptop logged into the house. So another scenario. A lot of times installers like to, there may be 6 sources connected, and they hide all of the other inputs to prevent you accidentally turning it to another input. Then the customer goes out and buys an Xbox One X. And he plugs it into the open input, but when he turns the input knob, it does not exist. So you can log in remotely, unhide that input, label that input Xbox One X, and while you're eating a burger at McDonald's. So as an installer, it gives you a lot more flexibility to fix problems, and that makes you a better value and a better partner for the customer, and they're more likely to maybe give you, a maintenance package that you will determine. So that's kind of a nice thing.
Or a recommendation to their friend.
Exactly. So this one here is just an example of a Domot's application. So even in this one, you can actually see if you have multiple clients in the same area, you can actually see where they're located. You can monitor them. So there's one in New Jersey, and there's one over there in Japan. This is somebody else's system, as you can see. I don't think I have 2 houses that far away from each other. So I can go in, I can see all the clients that I have. I can see where they're located. So say I'm a large retailer, I can have one service center. And if I do have to send a truck out, I can say, okay, that was located in New Jersey. Who's my guy in New Jersey to go out there to go fix it? Yep. On top of that, if you have a large system, we also want to make it as easy as possible. So we work as closely with these companies as we possibly can to ensure that our pieces, our Denon & Marantz pieces, integrate the best of any other AVR. We wanted to make sure of that because we say we want to be a great partner. If you buy a receiver for $2,000, they're all going to sound pretty good. The question is, why would you as a CI dealer choose us? So for example, if I have a big system that has 16 zones of music, iPads, laptops, Nest thermostats, remote lock doors, shades, curtains, and everything else, there could be 1,000 things on that network. So what we do on the front page of Domot's, there's 2 tiles. So if I click on that tile, it immediately takes you to the Denon & Marantz product. You don't have to scan through to find that. Once I click on it, like I said, I can go in and I connect. You have access to the full menu. So I can go in here, and this is the same as if I go into Domot's or one of the other devices. Just as an example of what it looks like on this one compared to overseas. But all of them allow you to go in there, make adjustments and things like that. So it's a great addition to a integration.
Phil, you're director of training. What does it involve from the integrator's time and education in terms of getting up to speed on all these things that they can do remotely? Is it something that requires a lot of training? Do you have specific courses for that so they can get involved with it? And what's the learning curve like for these guys?
Well, I'm sure that the smart remote management companies have tutorials on how to set this up. But I will tell you that I have the Domot's box in my house, and I also have the Oversee component in my house. And without any instruction whatsoever, just by reading the instructions in the box, I had it up and running myself in about 15 to 20 minutes. So, and of course, if you have any challenges and additional needs, there's not only do you have the providers like Domot's and IEG, you also have Tom and Mike who are in our service department. So explain what you do and what your lab looks like.
Yeah, so my main job is to support dealers and installers for AVR products. We have Mike, like he said, he's our network expert, so primarily HEOS products. But we have a whole lab with all of our equipment, all of our products that we offer today and a couple of years past, but we also go out and buy third-party products. We have every version Apple TV, Roku. We even buy third-party ISP provider routers. So we have a whole lab. If you have a problem, odds are we could test it on site. We're always buying new products, video game systems, to just keep up to date and replicate any possible bugs or anything like that.
Yes, so like I said, we want to be a good partner. So if someone sets up a Domo's system, or they have a few questions, they can Tom can go back into his lab. What system are you using? What AVR are you using? And we can go in and replicate and figure out where they're struggling to set the system up. So that really helps set this up, even to the point where they don't do this yet. I'm not going to try to give them more work to do. But say you do have a system in there and you can't, you don't know what that setting is. If he gets the password, he can log in from New Jersey and fix your problem, because we know our menu better than you do.
Right.
So there's a lot of things there. So it's not as intimidating as you would think to add this functionality, but it's becoming more and more readily available. And it just gives you an opportunity. We want to have that continuous connection with our customers. You don't want to just install and then not even talk to that person for the next 5 years until it's time to install something again. If you do smart remote management, you can call them and say, hey, there's a new firmware. Let me update that for you. If they buy, you can come up with a service plan. Service plans were hard because if it broke, it was a truck driving 2 hours back and forth, and how much is that an hour? But if you know that probably 75 to 80% of the stuff you would do, you can do remotely, now the fee that you would charge for that service plan goes down,
right,
and it can still be profitable. And you have that more two-way communication, not just every 5 years.
Does Sound United help the dealers in terms of structuring those kind of service agreements, maintenance plans, things like that?
We just say it's an opportunity for growth in your business.
Yep.
We can't recommend what that's going to be. That would probably be something where you would talk to, find out what our capabilities are, go to Domos or Oversee or IEG, find out what you can do with their system. Because remember, our piece is just part of the system.
Yeah.
Because this is also incorporating your lights, your power, and everything else. And you look at how much you're putting in the home, in addition to our devices, and then what their service can provide, and then you can come up with what is a good solution for your particular clientele. So it's up to the dealer, but think about the fact that we're always looking for ways to generate revenue, and it just takes a little bit more creativity on the dealer side and a little bit of thought, and you can generate a little bit of money that just was just sitting there on the table.
Yeah. Have you heard from some of your dealers that are having success with it? And if so, what are some of the things that they point to in terms of their conversations with customers that, makes it resonate more?
The main thing is we will take, work with me, because I'm not just going to put this stuff in your house and run away. I will make sure that it will always work well for you, and I will always be there for you if you have a problem. That's why I am better than the guy down the street. If you have a problem, if you decide to do this particular thing, I can solve it quickly.
Right.
For example, if your internet, like I'll give you one that, a classic one. Say I was gone, and my wife calls me and says she was trying to stream the Super Bowl game from my main system through all the speakers in the house, and it was cutting out, and she couldn't understand why. So I logged in on my app. I could do a speed check and find out that there's a whole bunch of kids on my network and everything else. And the reason why the music was stuttering, or the stuff was stuttering, was because not only was there 6 or 7 zones doing high-res music, there was 14 kids on iPads playing Minecraft, and there was a dip in my Wi-Fi network. So that kind of stuff is just something you can do. You don't have to roll a truck, but you can solve the customer's problem. Tell the kids to get off the iPad and call Comcast and say that you have a dip in your service right now and they need to fix it. So that people don't want to wait to have their issue solved. And if I can get to you immediately from my smartphone while I'm eating lunch or on the side of the road, how much is that worth to a client?
Right. And like Tom was saying, they can generate referral business. If someone's telling their friends, hey, my person, he got back to me in 2 minutes and fixed that problem, then clearly that word of mouth will spread on that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
In terms of integrators and these capabilities, what are some of the questions that they have for you guys when they are trying to set these up and configure these systems, and what are they struggling with? And on the flip side of that, what do they really get, and what are some of the features that they use all the time?
I'll let Tom.
Well, one of the new features we added also is HDMI diagnostics. I mean, a lot of my calls are HDMI related, unfortunately.
Sure.
But our engineers are always adding new features. They're kind of like hidden menus, but I mean, that alone has really saved the day for a lot of our installers that I talk to. I'm able to show them how to limit certain features, or if a cable box doesn't want to play nice via HDCP, you can limit just the one input, and then you get video, whereas in the past we weren't able to get video. We had to come up with third-party products or run new cables. So we're always adding new features. SRM is another one, which, like I said, if you could leave the house knowing, hey, I have access to his setup menu at all times, you're more confident. The customer probably feels more comfortable as well, knowing that, hey, he doesn't have to come out here for every little thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually we had a slide, we didn't bring it, but it actually of Oversee showing you the status of the HDMI diagnostic. So you could actually verify the cables, have the customer says, I bought a new projector, I plug it in, or a new TV, I plugged it in, and all of a sudden now I don't get HDR. You can tell them to take the cable that they're using connected to that projector, plug both the in and the out into the receiver, run diagnostics remotely, and say, that cable doesn't support 18 gigabits, you need to get a new cable. So you can do it all remotely, and you can even, like I said, and this is actually a slide of showing you, like, I can run a speed test. I can see what's on the network, where the dips are, and I can say, you know what, around 5 o'clock every evening, your internet speed's going to go down, and based on how many you may want to upgrade your internet service because you want to do all this multi-zone music and video distribution. Mm-hmm. And I can also do it I don't have to do it from my laptop. Each of the particular devices have their own kind of mobile interface that you can actually use.
Yeah, so dealers can go in and see certain things with their systems and maybe even go in and offer upsell opportunities for these guys. Like you said, if it's a network that isn't performing well enough or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, you can have somebody you can measure the bandwidth from what's coming into the house and then have them do a speed test on their laptop wirelessly, and you can say, wow, you're losing your bandwidth is only 40% of your input. Yep. Maybe you should upgrade your router or your access point, and you can see all that remotely from these, and just by using these particular services and stuff.
Are there certain things that customers question when integrators, how does that conversation go between the integrator and the customer when the integrator says, hey, I'm going to go in and I have access to all this stuff in your system? Is that usually, how is that received?
Like I said, it's up to each integrator. And the questions about privacy and all that type of stuff is more of a Domotz, IEG, Oversee question. Basically, what we're saying is when you're in here, you can get to our settings, our menus, and everything else. So each company has their own solutions to ensure privacy, and so you would talk to each of those providers about what is your solution when a client asks me about privacy and my network and stuff like that, and what is your unique selling proposition for network security.
And what are some other questions that integrators have for you guys when they're trying to set things up? Are there things that in the system that you're explaining to them that they had no idea existed, that they even had access to?
Well, there's a couple of features. So once you set up a receiver, you down the road you may have to factory reset it or reset some settings. A lot of guys don't know that you could back up your settings, save them on a USB thumb drive. I tell guys to do that always on a new install. Just leave it on site there. So even if you're not the one that has to come back, maybe it's another technician or it's the customer, he could always reload those settings if for whatever reason you had to reset something. There's all sorts of new features that we're always coming up with that dealers are asking us for.
So let me give you, I'm all about the scenario guy since I'm a trainer. So person calls you and says, my left front speaker stops playing. I can log in with this. I can run a test tone. And I can see if it's crackling or not, or if it's playing or not. I can see all of that. I can look and see if I got an alert that the wire is crossed or the receiver's overheated. So now I have determined, based on my troubleshooting remotely, that the receiver's, God forbid, left front channel has a problem. So you're going to do a swap. I can tell them to put a USB into the front, from remotely boot in all of the settings, my levels, my settings, my crossover settings, the labels of all of my devices, say, take that USB out and put it on the counter. And then I take the junior guy in my company and say, go swap that receiver out. And when he goes to swap the receiver out, they plug it back in the network. I say, plug that USB into it, and then I load all the data back into it. And then now I got a really seamless swap. All the features are there. I don't have to go back through and run all my Odyssey surround sound settings and relabel all of my inputs and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of power to combining our web UI and some of our other CI-focused features with things with other things such as smart remote management.
Is it something where the integrator, where the company needs to provide certain access only to certain people just to make sure that no one else goes into it? And then what happens if, say, that technician leaves that company? How can the integrator make sure that that technician doesn't have access to all those settings anymore?
Like I said, go ahead.
I was just pretty much what you were saying earlier. That's more on the Domote side or oversee. But I do see there's a customer management tab there, and I'm pretty sure that has a way for a customer to have like a override password that he would have set up first. But that's something we'd have to check with oversee to be sure, or Domote.
But the main thing we want to let people know is be aware of all these different opportunities that you can do, and things that you can do that you may not have been able to do a few years ago. Right. There's more services available. We support, like I said, 3 of the big ones. And they're built into routers, they're outboard boxes, they're inside network switches, and not only, like I said, our devices, but we're talking, you can cycle, there's Domo's controllable power conditioners and power outlets. The list goes on and on.
I was to say, our products are just a couple that are going to show up on a Domote system, but there's control systems, if you have Crestron, Control 4, that's showing up in there as well. So that, going back to your question, of course, that could be a concern. You don't want someone who's now became a stranger having access to your Control 4 system.
Have you heard any feedback from the dealers in terms of the services that are available now, pros and cons to using each one? Are they all pretty seamless? Is it going to be a relatively similar experience for the dealers?
We are service agnostic. It's up to the dealer to determine, based on their partnerships with Domote, CEDIA, and Oversee, to determine which one works for them. Of course, there's going to be pros and cons for each service, but like I said, there's a reason why all 3 exist, and our goal is just to make sure that our pieces work well together. Just like we don't only support one third-party control system. We try to we're Savant, Crestron, Control 4, URC. It's not our decision to determine what's best for your business. It's our dedication to you and to the dealers that we will give you, our piece will work well with the pieces and the solutions and the other devices you want to add to that network.
Great. Well, I think we have some time for questions, if there are any.
Yeah, I was wondering about aptX, low latency for like on your AVR receiver when you want to use a set of low latency headphones with a TV video source.
So you're asking about like the new Bluetooth headphone transmitter capability in our receivers?
Yeah, there's a codec called aptX, which is very low latency, which a lot of people are using, putting a third-party device on your AVRs to make that happen. But if you could incorporate that within the AVR, it would really help.
Yeah, we're having a future firmware update where you can now broadcast Bluetooth. I don't know off the top of my head what Bluetooth format it's going to use, but like I said, it's coming out in the near future, and we could check on that for you. But it will be able to broadcast Bluetooth, not just receive, and you could also use speakers simultaneously if you want.
Yes, that was kind of a request from many people that they wanted the ability to have the surround sound system or the system playing, and then also we'll have a Bluetooth transmitter. When that feature is announced or fully the firmware, we will make sure that we provide those, what type of Bluetooth it's using and things like that. I had an opportunity to hear it in Japan, and it was pretty darn low latency. It wasn't like some bad, karate movie where the voice did not match the audio. So it does a pretty good job. We had people playing the home theater and the headphones, and it wasn't like the voice was way enough out of sync for it to actually even be noticeable when you're watching the scene.
All right, well, I'd like to thank Phil and Tom again for joining us today at the
It was a
TechTalk.
pleasure.
And you can go to the Sound United booth to learn a little bit more about these new features.
Yeah, and be sure to visit of course, the Oversee, the Domos, and the IEG one.
Exactly.
Because they can get in a lot more detail on these particular services. But it is really an opportunity for you to generate new revenue and provide a better customer experience. And that's why we were committed to it, and that's why we support it.
Great. Thanks.